What led me down this path to find God was me honestly like running the opposite direction as far as I could. Life didn't feel real because I was like, that was real. I felt more alive, more aware, more clear in thought. I found hell easier to describe because there wasn't much to it. It was far from God, and it was the lack of things. Heaven is described to be made of these beautiful jewels. It was a close approximation to what I saw, which I thought was astounding. Looking back on the whole thing, this was something, it wasn't the drugs that caused this whole situation. It was God used that moment to, I fully believe he turned me off to turn me back on again. And he orchestrated the whole thing and allowed it to happen. I mean, God was there from the beginning. It's me recognize if he was there or not was the difference. I had some pretty miraculous miracles happen when I was a kid. One of which is I remember seeing my grandmother in the clouds with like angel wings behind her, and my mom was there to see it, and she was pretty flippant about it. She still talks about it to this day. And then I think like around when I was 7, you know, when you're looking in the clouds and you're trying to like make an approximation of what you're seeing. Like, oh, that kind of looks like a bunny if you like squint your eyes and like turn your head and all that. But this was beyond that. I remember my mom, dad, and I were driving to a car dealership to pick up our car. And I just offhandedly said to my mom, like, I'm gonna look for our cat in the sky. And they just thought it was a cute little thing, a little kid coping with the loss of their best friend. And we pulled up to this car dealership, and I look, as soon as I step out of this car, I just see, like, honestly carved from marble. You could see the nose, the eyes, the curl of the back, the tail, ears, everything. Just my cat sitting perched upon this cloud. And still to this day, one of the most profound miracles I've ever seen. And I pointed to my mom, and she's freaking out. She's like, Joel, do you see it? And my dad's like, yeah, I see it. I had some pretty significant encounters like that as a kid and just chalked it up to some like cool events. I was begrudging to accept the idea of God because it created a lot of conflict in me, in my heart, and my home. My brothers were struggling with the fact that my parents were getting a divorce, and I mean, so was I, but I was just a kid at the time, and this led to like my brothers running away from home and joining a church that created a lot of conflict amongst the family. My parents split up, and then I was between households. I didn't see my brothers much in my youth, and there was a lot of fighting, a lot of fighting. I became kind of like this messenger pigeon amongst my family of relaying information between my siblings to my parents, and yeah, it was very isolating. I felt very withdrawn from my life. I felt like I didn't matter. I felt like alone. And this, in my mind, all occurred because of this idea of God. So it made me very much hate the concept of it. And that's what I believed it to be. It was just this idea, something that people follow to make themselves feel better. I just felt like I couldn't rely on anybody because everybody was dealing with their own struggles and I was always just forgotten about. I learned to fend for myself, and in that I was very defensive. I was the type of person, like if you thought God was real, I would come up with a list of many, many reasons to why you were wrong. I was very scientifically aligned with my perspective on life, and yeah, it was just a defense mechanism of how hurt I was. And in this perspective, I found my own ways to cope, a lot of which was like pornography and smoking weed and drinking and things like that. I was depressed for many years, and I just didn't recognize that or choose to acknowledge it. And I was always trying to present myself as this like happy-go-lucky, everything's good in my life type of person. Started to develop some like anxiety in high school, so I went on some meds, started smoking, and lo and behold, this one night, it was a New Year's Eve, I decided it'd be a great idea, eat a bunch of brownies. I remember stupid things like licking the batter and licking the spoon, and I remember being so high at a point that I already ate half a brownie, and I was like, the voice of my mother, like, there's kids starving in the world, you should eat your leftovers, and so I went back against my own good, ate the rest of it. So I ate way beyond I should have. Drink a bunch and chill out with my friends and watch a movie. Yeah, and this wasn't news to me. I have a heart murmur, which essentially is like my heart beats like an extra beat every so often, and it's nothing serious. It's just like a little neurological malfunction. Got it tested, everything was good, and so I'm laying in bed, high out of my mind, watching Ryan Gosling's Drive. I still haven't finished the movie. I've had so many attempts to watch the movie, and it's always the same part. Never get to finish it. Yeah, I was just laying there, and my heart started skipping, and I didn't think much of it. It was nothing new. It's happened before, but it just kept going. Usually it'd be like maybe 2 or 3 seconds, but this thing just kept going, and then it stopped. I was like, okay, we're good. And then it came back again, and my friends were looking at me like, what's wrong? Why'd you stand up? They thought I was gonna throw up or something, because I said I felt nauseous. They're like, well, go to the bathroom or whatever, and I felt it stop, and I feel my chest, and I didn't feel my heartbeat anymore, and I could feel it stop, and I could feel the blood in my body stop moving, which is something I had never felt before, and that was the first time feeling that. And it was just an overwhelming sense of dread as I knew what was happening, like my heart's not moving. And I was like trying to utter the words like call 911 before this, like I think I'm having a heart attack, and then I started to pass out, and I was like falling, and I was trying to aim for the bed, but before I even hit the bed, it just went completely black, and I was just completely knocked out. And then seeing my last moments, like all these flashing images of all these memories from when I was a kid up into that moment. It was very short, to be frank, because I was only 19 at the time. And then like a few beats later, I woke up, and it was cold, and I felt extremely isolated. Originally, I thought the lights were off, and I thought I was in the same room, and I could feel like I was awake, and my body I wasn't dreaming, and I look around, and it's nothing. It's just like this black expanse of nothingness. It's pitch black, darker than dark, and I go to look at my hands, and I can't see them. And I figure it's just that dark that I can't see them. But I could feel that my hands were there, and I was like touching, but it was with the absence of flesh touching flesh. I could just feel the motion and, I guess, energy of having hands, but not seeing anything. And I felt hyper aware. I described it as like I could see beyond 20/20 vision. My vision's not great, but everything I could see, even in this darkness, was clear. Like, my hearing was better, my focus was better, just everything was like dialed in. I know a lot of, like, when you're high, you often feel like out to lunch, it's like your emotions and sensory system is just haywire, going all over the place, everything's overstimulates you, and this just felt like the purest form of sobriety I'd ever experienced, even in waking life. Crystal clear mind, but it was pitch black, and I was completely alone, it felt like I was beyond life. It felt so absent from anything. It felt completely isolated, beyond sitting in a dark room. I went to check my pulse and touch my body, and I'm looking down and I don't see anything. I start thinking like, what was the last thing I remember? Because I couldn't remember anything, and then I remembered what happened, and I went, oh, I'm dead. Like, is this the afterlife? My belief would be that'd be it. Like, once you die, you're done. And I felt my attention pulled off to like the right-hand side, and I see this tiny little white light coming towards me. And I'm like, oh, is this like the light that people talk about? And it starts hovering towards me, and I'm assuming like, oh, I'm going, like maybe this is like the transitional spot. Like I'm now going to afterlife, to whatever that might be. I see this light come into view as it gets closer and closer, and it looks like an animal. And I see this goat head, like this billy goat head, and it's just looking at me. And I wasn't scared of it, and I didn't think anything, it didn't unnerve me, but I was like, just examining it, I was like, what is it? Like, am I still high? Like, what is happening? But I just saw this goat head float over to me, and then it started talking to me without moving its mouth, just like its thoughts into my thoughts. And it basically said, like, in like a mocking sense, like, you and I for the rest of eternity. And I realized what it was. I'm like, you're the effing devil. I was like, I know what you are. It's like no way. Like, am I dead and am I in hell? And that's the devil. And I just started like freaking out. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, well, if you're real, then God's real. And I was pissed. Two of my biggest fears in life were isolation. Was one of my biggest fears, because that's often how I felt growing up. That was one of my biggest fears, and the other was nothing, having nothing to do, and the absence of anything, which is where I found myself. I was in my own version of hell, and now this thing's here. And I basically pointed on them, I'm like, all you are is just a confirmation that there's other things out there. I am not spending my time here. And I just started pleading with God. I'm like, God, like, why am I here? I tried to be a good person. Like, I was the type of person to go out of my way to like open a door for somebody that I didn't need to. Like, I bent over my back helping people. I tried my best to be a good person and prove that I was a good person. I remember cussing out God, and I was like, how dare you send me here? Like, if I'm in hell, nobody has a chance. I'm not saying I'm picture perfect, but I'm definitely like one of the better end of people, and this was my perspective of myself. And I was mad. I was furious that now this scenario I'm in, God proving to me that he's real, he sends me here. I thought he was supposed to respect good people, and I never did wrong. Like, at the times I did screw up, I always tried to amend it and fix it, or tried to be a good person. And I was like, if I can't make it, then nobody can. What do I do? Like, now that I know, like, this is how I find out you're real. I'm like, I'm already dead. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm in hell. What am I supposed to do? Like, this has all confirmed to me that there is an afterlife, to which I thought there was nothing. And I'm here. I'm like, I want to know you now. Like, God, I want to know who you are. Like, I want to talk to you, because my only beliefs of you were like very short and few as a kid. And now I'm here. And as soon as I uttered the words, like, I want to know who you are, God, like, I want to build a relationship with you, I just felt this warmth enter to this cold space. And this little goat guy getting annoyed. I can't remember fully what he said, but something like, he was just like trying to tear me down, but I just wasn't having any of it. I just thought it was a joke. And out of this darkness, this blue light started to form, like I want to say like miles in the sky, even though I couldn't tell the depth of anything. And I just hear this voice, which was God's voice. This commanding voice just talks to me, and mostly me just talking to it, saying how pissed off I am, and like, now that I know you're real, like if I knew you were real, that would have changed my entire life. I wouldn't have acted the way I did. Like, that changes everything. And I uttered those words, and I was transported to this other place. I felt pulled, like I got picked up by my whole body and just like ripped to this other place. These like flashing lights came passing by me as if I was going by like the speed of light, like in Star Wars or something. Like, just like all these colors of these warm rainbow-esque colors passing by my face, and I could feel myself being pulled, and it felt like wherever I was going was like extremely far from where I was. And then I stop, and I'm in this other place, and I look around, and like all the feelings that were previous in this last place are gone. Like, it's just this overwhelming sense of peace and warmth and comfort and calm. And it's beyond words. I best try to describe it. I was in this landscape, this like beautiful field, like wheat field, or with this large oak tree, and everything was made of this like beautiful rainbow. Everything was made of rainbows. It sounds like fluffy, but like everything was like translucent. I describe it as like hard light. Everything had a form to it, but I could see through objects. But it wasn't completely transparent. Like, it still had its structure and form, but everything was made of like these like crystals without the crystal shape, like just the form of like glass, and everything was made of rainbows, and it was beyond beautiful, and my words don't give it justice to how truly beautiful it was. And I remember I like turned off to the left-hand side or something, and I see this like giant, like I want to say like 12-foot, 13-foot cross, black cross, and it's emanating this like warm heat light from all angles around it, radiating off of it, almost like looking at like a heat lamp or something like that. And I just look up at it, and I'm just like saying thank you to God. I'm assuming at this point, like, me wanting to know God is what brought me into heaven, and then that's where I was going to remain. Then all of a sudden I'm on this cross, and I'm looking down from just for where I was a second ago. It wasn't pain I felt, but I was like overstimulated to like the 11th degree. I always describe it, I'm like, you ever been rudely awakened with like a blinding flashlight, or stubbing your toe, except you're stubbing your whole body? Like, it just felt like every nerve ending in my body was just beyond what it could actually handle. It was unbearable. And I cried out to God, and I'm like, I can't bear this. I can't handle this. Like God, take me. I need your help. I can't. Back there standing at this cross, I had a short conversation with God, basically telling me my time wasn't up yet. That, yeah, it's nice here, but you got much to tell, and be back here eventually, but my time's not done. I have to go back. And I said, okay. And so I get like thrown out of heaven, and I'm falling. I like fall through a cloud, and then fall through a roof, and through ceiling, and then back into my body, and I like crumple inside of myself, and all goes black, and I feel this like cracking pain, and I'm back in my body, except I'm not conscious yet. I'm still like blacked out, but I can feel my physical body again. The issue was I could still feel that my heart wasn't pumping. And I heard this like female angelic voice telling me like, if you want to go home, if you have to essentially like prove your desire that you want to be back. I remember using like every mental fiber of my being, pushing. It felt like I was lifting a house, focusing on where my heart was to get it to pump again, as if I was like flexing a muscle I've never attempted to flex before. And it expanded all of me, and I finally did it. And I got this heartbeat to go, and I felt it, and I was like so relieved that I felt my heart pump again. But it was just the once. And I was like, was that it? Like I gave it everything. Like this female voice told me like I have to, like again, like you have to keep going. Again, putting every mental fiber I could into getting my heart to beat again, and I do, and I get again just one more beat out of it. I didn't know how much longer I would be able to hold on to doing that. Like the capability to start my heart again was beyond anything I've ever experienced. And I think I did it one more time, and I didn't have the energy in myself to start it again. And I could feel myself like leaving my body again. I was starting to wane, and I feel like my spirit's leaving my body again, and I just cry out, I'm like, God, I can't do this by myself. Like, there's no way I could. I need your help. Please help me. And this voice, this angelic voice basically speaks to me and tells me, like, I'm taking you home. You're gonna go home. You're going home. And with every time it spoke to me, it was as if I was like using it as a reference point to base my heartbeat off of, and it helped ushered my heartbeats along. And then eventually it started, like it was one, and then it was a few more, and then eventually my heartbeat caught up to go like a pretty steady pace, and then I woke up, and I wasn't where I was like moved across the room, and I was like in my underwear. Originally I was in a Ninja Turtles onesie that I had apparently vomited all over, and they had pulled me out of that. Coming back to into my body and feeling it again, it was, I've tried to rationalize it in a few ways, but it feels as if like when your soul is in your body, it's channeled through like a lens. It's dialing in what is you through the means of this physical body. It's like restricting in a way. The memory of what I just went through started like reliving itself in my mind, and I kept going through it over and over and over again. And I started like reenacting physically what I had gone through. And I remember laying on the ground with my arms up, and they were trying to put my arms down to take care of me, but they like just couldn't, and I was my arms on the cross, and I was just like flipping back and forth between like where I was and what I had just remembered, and I was just trying to rationalize it all. And then eventually I like actually came to, and they ushered me into the washroom because I felt like I might have been sick again. And then they had to help me walk because like the blood was still getting back into my limbs. I could barely feel my legs. I could barely feel my arms. I was like falling over myself. And eventually I could feel my blood pumping through me because my heart was going fast. It was going extremely fast as I was essentially had a panic attack, or not a panic attack, like an anxiety attack. My heart was, I was completely calm, but my heart was going rampant. I remember fighting my friend over the phone trying to call 911 because they were trying to avoid the whole thing because we were smoking weed and at a time where it was like illegal, so they were worried about getting in legal trouble. And I was like, I don't care about that. I don't want to pass out and die again. Like, I'm calling 911 and we got in a big fight, and the stress of that made me pass out again. And then I came to, like, I think the ambulance had already arrived, they came up the stairs and they threw the heart monitor on me and they were asking me a bunch of questions, and they didn't believe me because I was like sober at that point, and they were thinking I was just like screwing with them. And then I showed them my ID. I'm like, no, I'm 19. And they're like, okay. And they're like, well, we need you to calm down because like my heart was going so fast it wasn't registering on their heart monitor, which is like over 180 or something like that. I was like, I feel fine. Like I'm talking to you right now. I'm pretty calm. They're like, just breathe. I'm like, okay. Dosed me up with a bunch of meds to chill me out, and I remember passing out in the ambulance, and my partner at the time was freaking out, and they're like, can I come with you? And they're like, no, because they don't want any more chaos to the whole night. The staff, I remember like looking at this guy who had a beard, and I was like, oh, you got a beard, I got a beard, we're beard brothers. I was just out of it. In the hospital in a gown, and I want to say an hour or two. And they sent me on my way. They gave me like a taxi card. I was still in like the gown, and I show up back at my partner's place, and they thought I had escaped the hospital because I was still in the gown. I was like, no, they sent me on their way. They're like, they sent you back? Which, looking back, I went to go see check out the health record of that night, and it wasn't documented. So I'm assuming they were trying to do me a solid because I was a young adult who was doing an illegal drug, and they figured he'll learn his lesson and whatever, and just let me go on my way. And I think that's also why they ushered me out, because it was New Year's, and I'm sure they encounter things like that on days like that all the time. And I was just very coherent at this point, and I was trying to like relay everything I experienced, and I was like, whoa, that was a crazy trip. And as soon as I was like back on Earth, I was like, yeah, I was just high, just trying to rationalize it. I remember their parents came home, and we kind of told them about the whole night, and the dad was paranoid, and he like ended up throwing the brownies in the garbage and dumping it in a dumpster some other block. He was just, yeah, it was an event, and I was fine for about a week. I just noticed like this, it felt weird. Like it wasn't anxiety, but it just felt ominous in the atmosphere. And I went home, and I remember waking up, running into my door, and I'm a pretty sound sleeper. I don't sleepwalk, I don't move much, but I had gotten up out of my bed, turned the corner, ran down like a 3-foot hall, and then into my door. And that's how I woke up, was running into my door. And that was the first of many panic attacks. Started to disassociate, and I figured that experience I was in wasn't over, and this was still a part of it. I thought it was back to where I was, and my brother was there. He ended up bringing me to the hospital because he didn't know what was going on. We go to one hospital. It was a child's hospital, so they didn't accept me in, so we had to go somewhere else. And this memory of like when I went back into my body and then felt that like crushing, I thought that's what snapped me out of it the first time. So I thought this was all a dream, and I had to wake myself up, and I was like trying to like crank my head off, like as like trying to snap my neck, thinking it was like a hallucination or something. And I remember my brother, he punched me in the leg to get me to stop, and that snapped me out of it. Brought me to the hospital. They just chalked it up as a panic attack and kind of sent me along my way. Yeah, it didn't get much better after that, to be honest. It was pretty torturous for a while. I would have more and more and more panic attacks, and I was losing sleep, and I just wasn't eating, and I would have these like horrible nightmares, these like horrid landscapes, and being chased by monsters and drowning, and in these dreams I was like dying over and over and over and over again, and it was horrific. And I would always wake into a panic attack. One of my oldest brothers saw me in the condition I was in, was freaked out by it, and prayed to me, and brought me to the hospital, and basically was like, you guys have to do something, because this is not the first time he's been to the hospital. And there was many a times I checked myself in because I would have these like horrendous panic attacks. And if you've ever had one or never had one, they're awful. They feel like someone put a gun to your face and tells you like you're gonna die right now and you have no say in the matter. And I was having like maybe 10, 20 a day. This thing was just over me. And one night I prayed for God to take my life. I'm not the type of person to ever harm myself. I was honestly, one of my biggest fears was dying. But I basically prayed like, God, if this is it, I can't do this. Just let me go peacefully in my sleep. And I went to bed that night and I had this dream where I was in my uncle's house and on the top floor, and the wall was blown out. And it was that same calm feeling that I had felt in that experience when like I felt the presence of God. And I just see this like wide open landscape of these towns, of this house on repeat, going beyond what I could see. And I felt this like warmth calling to me, like I'm here to take you. And I went and I stepped forward to the ledge and I went to put my foot out. And I just like thought for a second, and it didn't feel like dangerous. It felt warm and inviting, and it felt like this was God coming to take me from this pain. And then this voice told me to like look at the houses, and it basically explained to me like each home is represent a year on earth that I like, the life that I still have ahead of me. And it just went on and on and on and on. And I was kind of left with the choice of like, I can take you now, or you can keep living, but it's not going to be easy. So I put my foot back and I decided to stay, and I woke up, and that's honestly when things got worse. And that's when I eventually had my mental breakdown, and eventually I got help. They checked me into a health system that deals with trauma induced by drugs. I made a good recovery, and it was one of like the fastest recoveries that they had seen, and I made a lot of improvement, but it took, I think in total, 2.5, 3 years before I was like functioning again. And even then I would have these bouts of panic attacks, and I had to go on a bunch of different medications that some made it worse, some made it different. And a lot of what I was trying to do was like these self-improvement things to help my situation. The medication I went on put a lot of weight on me. I went from losing a lot of weight through this experience to like being 140 pounds to then gaining over 100 pounds. I ended up being like 260, 270. And for my frame was a lot. I remember doctors telling me like if I kept this up, I would experience a lot of liver damage, and there was fatty deposits on my liver. So I like really dived into like self-improvement, healing old wounds, therapy, and working out, and really taking on the idea of self-improvement. And it made a lot of improvements in my life, it did. But I had these problems that just I couldn't resolve, and it was my relationship problems. I tried my best to fix things, and at times I tried to make things worse. I felt so dependent on this relationship, and it made me feel crappy. It felt like I still wasn't 100% a person yet. It felt like I was still a shell of who I was, and I was trying to do all these things to prove to myself that I was like a human again. I very much was a shell. I remember my mother having to wash my hair in the sink because I was just so afraid to do anything. I was too afraid to even get in the shower, so she had to scrub my hair in the sink. So I was trying to get as far away as possible as what that was, and it was these repeating cycles, and I could read it like clockwork. I would start to struggle with pornography again, withdraw within myself and hide it, and then I would start to have relationship problems with my partner at the time, and then I would have family problems, and then financial problems, and it would all blow up, and then it was like rinse and repeat over and over again for probably like 5 some odd years. And eventually what ended up happening, and this whole time I would pray, I didn't read my Bible, but a lot of my prayers were just like, gimme, help me. I wasn't really seeking God at this time. I was more of just like wanting him to help me in life, get things from him. And there was times he did, and there was a lot of times he didn't. My cat experienced kidney failure, and I decided to like spend every dollar I could to try and save her. In the end, it didn't work because we caught it too late. And my mom decided to raise my rent like out of the blue as a way to like teach me a lesson and be more self-sufficient. She was trying to do some motherly things and just took the wrong perspective on it. I was able to have a conversation with her, and I confided how I felt, and we grew a lot closer on that day, and we realized how much more we were alike. But we agreed it'd be best for me to still move out and follow the plan that I had. And I did. I moved out to a friend's house, and that time I was on a film set as a background actor. It was basically like a reinterpretation of my high school years. We cut to this film set. I'm a basketball player. I'm a bench warmer. Our colors are gold and green. And I just felt so insecure, and it was these insecurities I had from high school. And it just felt like everybody was staring at me, and I was like, why is everybody staring at me? This is a long existing insecurity of me that I always felt like no one should pay attention to me, but yet everybody's eyes were on me and always is pointing blame at me or judging me, and I just couldn't bear it. And I remember walking home and praying to God, and I was like, what was that? Like, I thought this is something I personally healed. And now I'm facing this all like it's day one again, like it's brand new. And I just felt broken. I felt like I didn't accomplish anything. Walked home. It was in this part of town that's like honestly kind of sketchy, and I just prayed for God to facilitate a space with him so I could just talk to him, and no distractions around, quiet, and I could just talk. And I walked for probably an hour and a half downtown, and I didn't see a single soul. I didn't see a single car, and this was downtown. Like, this is a busy street usually, and no one there. And I told God, I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't, like, I tried, and none of it worked. And I have been reliving this cycle over and over and over again. And I still can't beat pornography, and I still go back to this relationship that I know isn't working and isn't good for me. I said to God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I've been distant from you. You literally saved my life. You brought me back to life. And basically said, I want to do it your way. Like, for years, I've done it my way. And I made a lot of improvements, but it's not working. And I still feel this emptiness within me, and this like broken heart and pain and all these things that I couldn't resolve. There was many walks through this trail, just talking to him, and I made a vow to like read my Bible every day, and that was a hard feat for me because I had a hard time reading growing up, and dyslexic, so it was something I very much avoided, and it brought a lot of insecurity. And pray, and I remember throwing myself on the floor in tears of just all these hardships that I wanted resolved, and things that I honestly forgot about. It's just like everything was coming to the surface. I had this day or this week where I kind of backpedaled, and I had this full day of backsliding towards like pornography, and I just felt so beside myself and just hated myself. And I tried everything, trying to break through pornography. I tried medication, I tried therapy, I tried like putting blocker. I tried everything. I just remember crying and praying to God, like, please, don't know what to do anymore, and I need you to help me. Like, take this from me, God. And I just felt this weight lift off of me. And a very nuts experience where, like, I'm on the third story of this building, and I hear outside of my window like this like demonic growl as it like gets sucked through this. I describe it like this like digital void. It sounds like it got sucked away, and I felt this weight off of me. And then these urges to like look at pornography, look at it right now. And I was like, no, like I just felt some miracle that God, like I felt something leave me, something that was binded to me forever. It's like, it's gone. Like I can tell it's dealt with. And all of that whole period was this intended isolation for me to build that relationship with God. And it was the first time I actually sought him. It took 7 years after this event for me to actually realize what I had to do, and it was just seek him. Not out of selfish ambition, but just wanting to know who God is and surrendering my desires and how I wanted to go about it and doing it God's way. No matter if like how many question marks that left or what if it didn't make sense. Faith, essentially, like no longer depending on my understanding of myself. And it was going against all my understandings. I was like the brokest I had ever been. And God was testing me in a lot of ways in relationships and these things, these strongholds, these belief systems that I had in myself, that he was just like shattering one after another. One of those was pornography, and another was belief system in himself that I could never ask my father for money. I could just never do it. I just felt like if I did, I'd be like a piece of shit. I'd be worthless if I were to ask my father for money. I tried everything. I tried my mom. I tried my brothers, and I tried my friends, and they had all helped me out in the past. But at this time, money was tight for everybody, so they couldn't help me. They wanted to, but they couldn't. My only option, like I had to pay rent. I had to pay for food. And I called up my dad and asked him to help me out, and he was like, yeah, buddy, that's what fathers are for. And he was so nonchalant about it. And I just, this wall came crashing down of this belief system that I had held for years with no factuality behind it, but just what I believed to be true. And God shattered it in that moment. I remember weeping after that, because I just realized all these ideas of who I had of myself and what I thought life was just all shattered. And I finally saw it. It felt like the first time ever I was finally doing things right, and I didn't feel alone anymore. And like I mentioned, those were my biggest fears. I always felt isolated. I always felt like I had to depend on myself, and God showed me he was always there. It was just me neglecting to seek him. But the first was God showing up for me, and then 7 years later was me seeking God. And that's what he was waiting for that whole time, was me to not do it out of selfish gain or getting what I want. It was to truly and honestly desire to know who God was. And that's all he's ever asking for is to have a relationship with you, to talk with you, and not be the dad that you're like, hey dad, I'm going to the store, I'm going to the mall, can I have some money? Like, to actually have a relationship with you about anything. And I confided in my mom recently, and she saw a massive breakthrough in her life. I was like, just talk about anything. Just talk about like how beautiful the surroundings are, or talk about what's been on your mind, or throw ideas around. Like, this is something I've been working on. Anything, literally anything. Anything you could possibly think of. He just wants to spend time with you. And the more you do that, the more you draw closer, the more that relationship builds. And it's a beautiful thing to recognize, like, the God of everything wants to take the time out of his universe day to know you, to be there with you and love you. And he does that for everybody. But it's us that are the reluctant teenager that like shrugs their shoulder and like, I'm too cool for you, dad. Like, that's the mistake we make over and over. We think our way is the best way, even though we just showed up. He's been around since the beginning. He knows you inside and out. He knows the things about yourself you don't even know about yourself yet. He knows who you will be. He knew who you were. And it's never condemning. Like, think about that in the sense that he knows you, of who you were and who you are, and he's loved you through it all.
You do, yeah.
And he continues to be that. He blows my mind away. Like, every week, every day, every minute, he does something to just show me how he is there. And it baffles me. For all those years, I felt so isolated, but it was just because of me walking away. And he was there the whole time. And he still is. And he always will be. Yeah. God is good. There's also something I discovered years later when I started reading the Bible, is both heaven is described to be made of these beautiful jewels and light and warmth, and it was a close approximation to what I saw, which I thought was astounding. And another realization that I had is when I was on that cross for a second, bearing what I came to realize was my own sin, it was unbelievably torturous, and I could not handle it. And I realized, like, what I was dealing with was just what I held alone, and it really struck me of what Jesus actually felt, because he was not bearing just mine, he was bearing everyone's sin, and just mine alone was unbearable. So it was just all these things that I thought I learned what I had from those experiences, but as I learned more from the Bible of these, like, biblically accurate things, I'm like, well, that's what I saw, that's what I witnessed, that's what I felt. That just giving more and more detail to these experiences. It's beautiful how he's designed and orchestrated everything. It just, everything is so finely intertwined and created. It's just beautiful in the shortest. The best approximation of what we could figure out was maybe half an hour. Which, for those that don't know, brain death occurs before that. It was about like half an hour. It felt like 3 hours. I think that's how eventually I figured it out, was like each 10 minutes felt like an hour. The entire experience felt like 3 hours. Coming back to into my body and feeling it again, it was, I've tried to rationalize it in a few ways, but it feels as if, like, when your soul is in your body, it's channeled through like a lens. It's dialing in what is you through the means of this physical body. It's like restricting in a way. I remember for a long time, and this was part of my disassociation of the trauma that I went through, is for that 2-3 year period of struggling with panic attacks and all that. Life didn't feel real, because I was like, that was real. That felt more, I felt more alive, more aware, more clear in thought, more capable. Just anything that you comprehend as consciousness and alive and being able to think and who you are, that felt 1,000 times more accurate to being alive. And then being in this world and body, it just felt like a diluted, dialed down, staticky version of what I had witnessed. And so that led to a lot of disassociation, like, well, this isn't real. This isn't real. And then I kind of learned through time, like, well, this is like the training grounds. This is to see who your character is, to see that you're actually capable of building and growing with God. It's not just about life. A lot of people are like, what's the meaning of life? And it's just proving and building that relationship with God. It's a testing under the fire, like all of life is. reaching out to my dad for money at a time where I was in desperate need, and it was the last thing I wanted to do because I thought he would look at me different or look down on me or perceive me as weak or lesser. God was showing an example of himself through my dad and breaking down that perspective I had. And my father said to me, like, that is what fathers are for, to be that support and to be that love. And it shook me because it changed the perspective I had on myself. It changed the perspective I had on my dad, and it also showed me how that's how God is. He's always there for you. And when you fall and you falter and you feel like you've made the wrong choices, or when you're like self-whipping and mutilating your identity and self, hating upon you, he's there just showing you how much he loves you, and he wants you to see yourself how he does. But we get so caught up in the negative and self-afflicting wounds, we assume God would be like that too. Nothing further from the truth. I think what I want people to know is within the darkest and hardest and horrendous places, the places where you feel like the world's crushing in on you, he's still there. That not to shy away from struggle and pain and hardship and torment, because when you're doing it with God, no matter what, he will take something that is meant to destroy you, something meant for evil, and he will make it for good. I believe that's a Bible passage or something close to it, Genesis 50:20. When you're in something that is God, which is all things good, and all things life, no matter what you go through, it's for good. And he's the best support system. He is what true love is. He is beyond understanding and compassionate. We and the people of this world and the world itself are so judging. And we have this image of like, oh, God must be so condemning. God must be so judgmental. God must hate us. And that is further from the truth. The furthest thing from the truth. He is the most loving thing in existence.